In the final days of 1989, as revolutions swept across Eastern Europe, one of the most infamous regimes in history came to a sudden, violent end. At the heart of it stood Nicolae and Elena Ceaușescu, Romania's self-proclaimed beloved leaders. Within just 3 days, they went from absolute power to execution in a freezing military courtyard. Elena Ceaușescu's journey began humbly. Born in 1916 in Petresti, a small Romanian village, she grew up poor and barely educated. As a young woman, she moved to Bucharest, working in a textile factory. It was there she met a young communist revolutionary named Nicolae Ceaușescu. Together, they would climb the ranks of Romania's Communist Party, and later dominate an entire nation. When Nicolae became General Secretary in 1965, the couple built a cult of personality that rivaled North Korea's. The propaganda machine painted Elena as a scientist, a mother to the nation, a woman of brilliance and virtue. The truth was far from it. She lacked formal education and barely understood the scientific papers published under her name. Yet she was awarded fake degrees and showered with international honors, all to maintain the illusion of a powerful, intellectual first lady. Inside the government, Elena's influence was enormous. Ministers and scientists feared her temper. Those who dared to question her fake credentials were fired, imprisoned, or worse. Nicolae worshipped her loyalty, and together they ruled Romania like monarchs, living in golden palaces while their people stood in endless lines for bread, milk, and fuel. By the early 1980s, Romania was drowning in debt. Nicolae's obsession with paying it off meant severe austerity. Electricity was rationed, heat was cut, and store shelves were empty. Meanwhile, the Ceausescus imported luxury furniture, fur coats, and foreign wines. Their delusion was complete. While citizens froze in the dark, they were broadcasting endless speeches about Romania's prosperity. The secret police, known as the Securitate, kept watch on everyone. One wrong word against Elena or Nicolae could end a life. Fear was everywhere, in schools, factories, even within families. But by the late 1980s, that fear began to crack. Across Eastern Europe, communist regimes were collapsing. In December 1989, the spark of rebellion ignited in Timișoara, Romania. It started as a local protest, but within days it became a national uprising. Soldiers fired on unarmed civilians, killing dozens. When the truth spread, the country erupted in fury. On December 21st, Nicolae Ceaușescu tried to calm the crowd in Bucharest with a televised speech. But for the first time in decades, the people shouted back. Live on television, his image flickered, a dictator losing control before millions of viewers. Within 24 hours, the army defected, the streets filled with protesters, and the Ceausescus fled the capital by helicopter. Their escape was short-lived. The pilot, fearing anti-aircraft fire, landed near the town of Titu. Locals recognized the fugitives, and soldiers arrested them. They were taken to a military base in Târgoviște. For the first time, the feared rulers were prisoners. Elena reportedly screamed at the soldiers, calling them traitors. Nicolae insisted he was still president. They refused food, refused to believe they'd fallen. But the revolution was unstoppable. Romania's new provisional government, the National Salvation Front, decided to act quickly. They feared the couple's supporters might regroup if they lived. On Christmas Day, December 25, 1989, the Ceausescus faced a hasty military trial. It lasted less than an hour. They were accused of genocide, corruption, and the destruction of Romania's economy. Elena shouted at the judges, refusing to stand when sentenced. Nicolae shouted that history would vindicate them, but the verdict was final: death by firing squad. Minutes later, they were led into the snow-covered courtyard. Their hands were tied. The soldiers lined up, rifles ready. Elena demanded to die beside her husband, and in that final moment, they stood together, defiant to the end. The order was given. In a thunder of gunfire, it was over. Their execution was filmed to prove to the Romanian people that the dictatorship had ended. When the footage aired, citizens cried, shouted, and celebrated. For the first time in decades, Romania was free. Elena Ceaușescu's life remains one of the most striking examples of ambition turned to tyranny. She had risen from poverty to become one of the most powerful women in Eastern Europe, only to fall as swiftly as she rose in a moment of cold justice. On that frozen Christmas day, The era of fear, propaganda, and blind loyalty ended in gunfire, and Romania stepped into a new dawn, leaving behind the shadow of the Ceausescus forever.